Lecture 6, Effective Communication. A. Introduction. The importance of communication. Effective communication is one of the most essential competencies in leadership, international relations, business, and everyday life. Communication is not merely the transmission of information, but a complex process of meaning-making between individuals, groups, and institutions. In an increasingly interconnected and digitalized world, the ability to communicate clearly, persuasively, and ethically has become a decisive factor in success. Communication shapes perceptions, builds relationships, resolves conflicts, and mobilizes action. In leadership and global governance contexts, communication can influence public opinion, diplomatic negotiations, and institutional legitimacy. Therefore, understanding how communication works and how it can fail is critical. B. The communication process. Communication is not a simple one-way transfer of information, but a dynamic and interactive process in which meaning is constructed and interpreted. This process consists of several essential components that work together to ensure effective understanding. First, the sender communicator is the originator of the message. The sender has an idea, intention, or piece of information that they wish to convey. In order to communicate, the sender must encode this idea into a form that can be transmitted, such as words, images, symbols, or gestures. Second, the message refers to the actual content being communicated. This can take many forms, including verbal communication, spoken or written language, and nonverbal communication, facial expressions, tone of voice, posture, and gestures. The clarity, structure, and relevance of the message play a crucial role in determining whether it will be accurately understood. Third, the channel is the medium through which the message is delivered. Communication channels can range from direct face-to-face interaction to digital platforms such as email, social media, and video conferencing. Each channel has its own strengths and limitations. For example, face-to-face communication allows for immediate feedback and rich nonverbal cues, while digital communication enables rapid and wide dissemination, but may lack emotional nuance. Fourth, the receiver audience is the individual or group who receives and interprets the message. The receiver must decode the message, translating it back into meaning. However, this interpretation is influenced by the receiver's prior knowledge, cultural background, emotions, and expectations. Fifth, feedback is the response provided by the receiver after interpreting the message. Feedback can be verbal e.g., questions, comments, or nonverbal a.g., nodding, facial expressions. It serves as a critical mechanism that allows the sender to assess whether the message has been understood as intended and to adjust communication if necessary. Finally, noise refers to any form of interference that distorts or disrupts the communication process. Noise can be physical, such as background sounds, psychological, such as biases or emotional states, or semantic, such as unclear language or jargon. C. Types of communication. Communication can take multiple forms depending on the context, medium, and purpose. Understanding these types is essential for selecting the most appropriate method and improving overall effectiveness. 1. Verbal communication. Verbal communication involves the use of language, either spoken or written, to convey meaning. It is one of the most direct and widely used forms of communication in both personal and professional settings. Effective verbal communication requires several key elements. First, clarity is essential. Communicators must avoid ambiguity, overly complex expressions, and vague terminology. Clear language ensures that the receiver can easily understand the intended message without confusion. Second, conciseness is important. Effective communicators deliver their message efficiently, focusing on key points without unnecessary repetition or irrelevant details. Concise communication saves time and maintains the audience's attention, while preserving meaning. Third, tone plays a critical role. The tone of communication should be adjusted according to the situation and audience. For example, formal language is appropriate in academic or professional contexts, while a more informal tone may be suitable in casual settings. In persuasive communication, tone can also be used strategically to influence attitudes and responses. 2. Nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication refers to the transmission of meaning without the use of words. It includes body language, facial expressions, eye contact, posture, gestures, and tone of voice. Facial expressions are particularly powerful as they can convey emotions such as happiness, anger, or confusion more effectively than verbal statements. Eye contact is another key element. It often signals confidence, attentiveness, and sincerity. Similarly, posture and gestures can reinforce or contradict spoken words. Tone of voice is especially significant because it can completely change the meaning of a message. The same sentence can be interpreted differently, depending on whether it is delivered with enthusiasm, sarcasm, or frustration. Research indicates that a substantial portion of communication effectiveness is influenced by nonverbal cues, highlighting the importance of aligning verbal and nonverbal messages. 3. Written communication. Written communication is fundamental in academic, organizational, and professional environments. It includes emails, reports, academic papers, and official documents. Effective written communication requires logical organization and coherence. Ideas must be presented in a structured manner so that readers can easily follow the argument or information flow. Additionally, writers must carefully consider their audience and purpose, adapting style and content accordingly. 4. Digital communication. Digital communication encompasses communication through electronic platforms such as email, messaging applications, video conferencing, and social media. One of its main advantages is the ability to enable instant global interaction, connecting individuals and organizations across geographical boundaries. However, digital communication often lacks rich nonverbal cues, which increases the risk of misunderstanding or misinterpretation. Therefore, effective digital communication requires awareness of digital etiquette, such as appropriate tone, timely responses, and clarity in writing. Additionally, communicators must manage information overload, ensuring that messages remain focused and accessible in an environment saturated with information, combining these forms appropriately to achieve clear and meaningful interaction. D. Barriers to effective communication. Communication often fails due to various barriers. Cultural differences. Different cultural norms affect communication styles, interpretations, and expectations. Language barriers. Misunderstandings arise from differences in language proficiency or terminology. Psychological barriers. Emotions, biases, and preconceived notions can distort interpretation. Organizational barriers. Hierarchical structures and bureaucratic processes may hinder open communication. Technological barriers. Over-reliance on digital tools can reduce clarity and personal connection. Overcoming these barriers requires awareness, empathy, and adaptability. A. Principles of effective communication. 1. Clarity and simplicity. Effective communicators express ideas in a clear and straightforward manner. Complex ideas should be broken down into understandable components. 2. Active listening. Communication is not only about speaking, but also about listening. Active listening involves paying full attention, avoiding interruptions, reflecting and clarifying. 3. Audience awareness. Messages must be tailored to the audience's knowledge, interests, and cultural context. 4. Feedback and adaptation. Effective communication is iterative. Communicators must adjust their message based on feedback. 5. Consistency. Verbal and nonverbal messages should align. Inconsistency reduces credibility. 6. Empathy. Understanding the perspectives and emotions of others enhances communication effectiveness. F. Persuasive communication. Persuasive communication aims to influence attitudes or behaviors. It is central to leadership, politics, and marketing. G. Communication in leadership and global contexts. In leadership, communication is a strategic tool. Leaders articulate vision and inspire followers. Clear communication reduces uncertainty in organizations. Transparent communication builds trust and legitimacy. In international relations, diplomacy relies heavily on precise and nuanced communication. Miscommunication can escalate conflicts. Cross-cultural competence is essential in global negotiations. In the digital age, G. Improving communication skills. Effective communication can be developed through practice. Self-awareness. Understand your communication style and its impact. Practice and feedback. Engage in continuous practice and seek constructive feedback. Adaptability. Adjust communication strategies to different contexts. Critical thinking. Analyze information before communicating it. Emotional intelligence. Manage emotions and respond appropriately to others. Conclusion. Effective communication is a foundational skill that shapes leadership, relationships, and global interactions. It is not simply about delivering information, but about creating shared understanding and meaningful connection. In a world characterized by complexity, diversity, and rapid technological change, the ability to communicate effectively has become more important than ever. Ultimately, effective communication requires clarity, empathy,